So on YouTube, there's usually one big rule, and that is to never read the comments. Unfortunately, I broke that rule, and I saw a comment where someone was saying, you're the make or break shop, but you don't seem to make anything anymore. It's just all laser reviews. And that's kind of true. So in this video, I want to actually make something. Specifically, make something that will go in the middle of these Harry Potter books. So we are going to be making a book nook, which is basically like a little scene that you can put between these books. Now this build is heavily inspired by a video by Nerdforge, where they basically recreated a scene from Diagon Alley.
Diagon Alley.
So I'm gonna be pretty much going through the process they used, but specifically, I wanna show you how I'm using my lasers to help me do things I'm just not really great at doing by hand. All right, so let's get into it. Like with everything, it all starts with a design, and Nerdforge is great because they actually provided vectors to these 3 storefronts. So I was able to pull those directly into the Xtool software, which is the machine that I used for this one. This video is not sponsored by Xtool whatsoever, but I actually found myself using the Xtool P2 a good bit, just because software is really easy to get into. I had to modify a couple of my designs, and I'll include a link to that file down below if you guys want to make this yourself. The plan is to build everything out of really thin cardboard or really thin MDF. And then like the stones and the bricks and all that stuff on the inside, I am going to make out of high density foam. This stuff is actually a lot denser than what you would probably want to use. This is like carvable foam that I use with the CNC. But you can use like pink foam that you might buy from like Home Depot or Lowe's. That works perfectly fine as well. But the very first thing we need to do is make a box. And boxes are what lasers are amazing at. So I'm taking the end shape that I know I want this to be. And now that I have that design, plus the design of the storefronts, I can go to the laser. So I've been doing my best to cut out pieces to go onto this, and I really wish I had some different material to do because I can't cut wood super easily with an X-Acto knife. But I wanted to compare that to the same process if I was going to laser cut something out. I just pulled up this SVG and then drew all the details on top of it, and then cut all of those out, and that is what I've got right here. So now what I'm gonna do is just take all those and glue them directly down onto this. That should be a faster process and a little bit more exact. And actually, if I just had some styrene, I would be able to cut that out pretty quick and then just put it on pretty fast. But I don't, so laser cutter, what's the best way to go? All right, so in terms of construction, I've more or less put the thing together. So this is like a 5mm MDF box, but you can see like the tab construction. I also used some like wooden veneer when I needed to do some of the curve stuff, especially on this. Pro tip, if you ever use wood, you know there is a grain direction to the wood. And then if you need to curve it, you need to make sure you are going in the right direction of the grain. But basically you want the grain going up and down, and then you're curving around that. So like those curves. But in terms of lasers, Nerdforge actually already had these storefront files. So if you are trying to recreate something, especially in the pop culture side of things, there might be a really good chance somebody has already created files, especially like vector files that you can use and cut out. And what's nice about lasers is you don't have to use a 3D modeling program like Fusion 360. You could do this straight in like something like Adobe Illustrator. Now, one of the things that I did that was a little bit different than what I saw in some of the other tutorials is I did the scalloped roof, which people definitely have done, but actually laser cut these scallops out. So these were just strips of laser cut veneer with that scallop shape. And then I was able to glue everything down on top of a little interior cone, and that worked great. And then one really big thing in terms of laser cutting that came in handy is the backing for all of this. So this is the ground that everything is going to sit on top of, but then there are these brick walls. But I need to cut out holes directly inside of this because I'm going to light it with some LEDs on the inside, so I needed room to get in there. And then also it looks really weird if you just have a wall right next to a window, so that makes it look a lot better. But this is some pretty dense foam, and cutting holes like this and something this thick was actually pretty hard to do by hand. You definitely could, but I found a laser was way easier. Again, I was able to place this directly inside of the laser. I could figure out where the holes needed to go. Then I could draw the shape on top of it and then cut them out. Now, one tool that I did use that's probably not like super common in this crafting space is I have a pretty good sized bandsaw. So some people will use like a hot wire cutter, especially when they're trying to cut out these thick pieces of foam. I don't have that, but I do have a bandsaw. So that was super handy, especially when I had to do this curved piece on the back. So now that we've got all of these guys constructed, it's time to get this thing painted. Now this isn't a paint tutorial. I'm gonna do my best. One thing I did do is I sealed this with some Mod Podge. So I'm just gonna use a brush and some acrylic paints to get some color on this design. So once I got everything assembled and painted, it was time for my favorite process, and that was electronics. This is something they also did in the Nerdforge video, but I used these WS286 LEDs. And what's nice about these is you can actually cut these and then wire them together. So inside of here, I'm gonna turn a light on so you can see in there. So not only do you have a power and a ground on these LEDs like a normal strip, you also have a data terminal that you can connect together, meaning you can control everything from an Arduino, which I have on the back. And then I'm able to individually control all of those LEDs, meaning I can control the brightness when they're on and off, color of them especially, and then you can create different sequences and stuff from there. I basically have a light for every single window. So that's 5 over here on Ollivander's. There's 2 in the back, and there's 2 on this side. Now, one thing that Nerdforge did that I kind of wish I did is they included some windows at the top, so you can kind of see there in the back. They could turn on and off. I just kind of ran out of time, so I didn't do that. And then kind of in the middle of this project, I went down to Orlando for a laser conference where I saw a really cool laser that I'll have an update for you here soon. And I also went to Disney World because I love Disney. And then one thing I noticed that I really haven't before is just like the roof of all of the rides and just how much lighting is up there. So when I got back, I thought it would be really good if I actually added some lighting to a roof. So I created this whole roof section, and there's actually 3 LEDs right up there, which means I can create lighting effects on the scene as a whole. So really this project was kind of a big excuse to get this room more put together. But the big thing is this desk that is right underneath me. This is the FlexiSpot E7 Plus, which is also the sponsor of this video. And not only is it just a great desk, but it is also a sitting and standing desk. And you can program different positions so you can quickly go from sitting to standing. And what I found is I actually adjust this a good bit. So if you're using this more in like a crafting space, you might have one setup to where you have your computer when you're standing up. But if this is actually a work table, I brought this way up, and then I'm fully standing up, but then I can get right into it. You also have a few different options for your tabletop. And for mine, I went with wood look. Now, one thing FlexiSpot wanted me to show you was just how strong this table is. So they recommended sitting on the table and then raising it up. So this supports quite a bit of weight. As I get closer to this microphone, it does a really good job. So FlexiSpot has a bunch of different designs and configurations, and they always have discounts and sales going on. So I encourage you to check them out at the link below. All right, let's get back into the build. All right, so after soldering and getting everything glued up, I'm able to hopefully turn it on. All right, so now it's dark, but you can see how the lighting is working. So a couple things I did do with the code, you hopefully can see in the B-roll, you might be able to tell right now, is all of the lights in the windows are like slightly flickering. I thought it made it a little more lively and made it look more like a candle. And then you just saw it happened, but since this right here is Ollivander's, that means there are wands inside, and so there are magic spells. So there is a sequence that is random flashes and pulses of a few different colors, and this will go off every now and then. And when it does, just like that, all the other lights in the scene dim, like it's pulling power from the environment. And then when it's done, everything comes back up. But the sky is probably what I like the most, so I can really set the scene on what I want. So I actually have a bluish light in the front too, because the reflection on the roofs especially look really nice. And then in the back is more of a yellow light to give it more of like the alley street light effects. And then once the wiring and everything was good to go, I just kind of covered it in this black acrylic I had laying around. And now I can just take it and put it on the bookshelf. Then I also found that the size of a paperback is not the size of a hardback. So it's definitely taller than the others, but still works. Also, one thing on the Arduino code, I don't really know how to code an Arduino whatsoever. This has been a use case for ChatGPT that I use a ton. I could type in what I wanted this to do and it would give me code that I could use directly in the Arduino. It's definitely a process that takes a little while and you'll slowly learn how the code works so you can modify it yourself. But even if you don't know anything about Arduinos, that's a really, really great way to learn it because you're using an actual project and it'll kind of teach you what it's doing along the way. So if you're checking out this channel because you are in the market for a laser, hopefully doing projects like these can give you a better idea of how you can utilize that laser in your build. Speaking of those lasers, I did a full breakdown on the desktop style lasers. And there's actually one from Xtool right behind me that could be a really great setup for you if you're doing stuff like this. So we're gonna jump into that video right now. Until next time, go make or break something in your shop. See you guys.